Hello. Welcome. I am David Shoemaker of TheRinger.com and The Masked Man Show, and this is a virtual Q&A about the new documentary, You Cannot Kill David Arquette from XTR, available now, right now, as you're listening to this. I hope you've already watched it, but if you haven't, it's available now. It is a documentary starring professional wrestling legend David Arquette, and I am joined right now by the one and only David Arquette, but not just David Arquette. Also, the directors of the film, David Darg and Price James, the wrestler RJ City, who appears in the film, and by the angelic voice of Brian Knobs of the Nasty Boys. Welcome to all of the panel and to everybody watching around the internet. If you have a question, you can put them in the YouTube comments. Write them there. They'll get to me, and from me, they'll get to everybody else here. So listen. Let's jump right in. If you've seen the movie, please ask questions. But I'll start off with one of mine. David Arquette. There's a lot of Davids here. David Arquette, the most important one. One of the most striking things about this movie, and it's a fantastic film. One of the most striking things is the buy-in that you got from your family to make this film, because a lot of us wrestling fans, our wrestling habits maybe not the thing that our family likes most about us, or we're not all included in everything. They're not all included in it, but your whole family's in this. Your sisters, your brother's in it. Your ex-wife is in it, and your wife has an enormous role in the film. Your wife Christina, she's an inspiration to the whole thing. Was it hard to get them involved? Was it hard to bring them into this part of your world? Is this just such a part of you that they knew they had to be a part of it too?
They were really sweet and supportive. Christina at first was like, what? She didn't get it. She didn't understand why I'd want to do it. She didn't understand the journey or the whole thing. So that took some convincing. Bryn Mooser at XTR was the first to sort of really think it was a great idea and get behind me. So that's sort of where it started. And then Christina came on board and did everything. Like, she literally produced this baby. And really, I can't give her enough credit. She really is a champion.
So for David and Price, what led you guys to want to get involved with this journey? I mean, what was it about? What was it about David and everything that he'd already been through and where he was going that got you so interested in doing it?
We knew David and we loved David, but even though I was very familiar with David and loved the Arquettes, I had never heard that he was the WCW champion back in the day, up until the point they bought me the project and asked if we were interested in it. And I loved that premise that, like, there's a story this crazy out there that a lot of people don't know about, that David was the champion. And so it's such a fantastic starting point for a filmmaker to have this, like, crazy premise that David Arquette was a world champion. It's like, what? Such a great starting point. And so Price and I were like, this is a great story. And at the time, there was zero chance that David would ever be able to fight his way back into the ring, because he was basically a fat pig when he came to us. And it's a miracle we even started rolling the cameras, to be honest.
Yeah.
We were childhood wrestling fans as well. So kind of 89 to 91, the sort of Ultimate Warrior, the sort of the Jake the Snake with Macho bite, the Cobra bite, all that stuff. So to kind of jump back in was sort of like reliving childhood fantasy, which I think is apparent in the film as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen, from the very beginning, I mean, throughout the entire film, one of the big things that comes through is David's passion for it, but also your passion just from making the film. And I think a lot of wrestling fans who were there watching when David was champion in WCW, probably the thing that not everybody really realizes is how seriously, David, you took it back then. Talk a little bit about that, about your investment during your first WCW run, and how that compares to sort of the investment you made to reinventing yourself through the course of this movie.
Well, I always loved wrestling, and I loved watching it as a kid. I saw Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan live, and that just blew my mind. Seeing Andre in person was like just crazy. So I always loved it, and I loved it up until when I read Ready to Rumble on page 8, it said Macho Man's in there. And I was like, wait a second. And I called back and I was like, did they really have Macho Man? And it was like a closer for me, because just the idea of working with Macho Man was incredible. So then the whole thing was just kind of a dream come true, being able to work with these guys, act opposite Diamond Dallas Page. He was just so wonderful. And Chris Kanyon and Shane Helms, Hurricane Shane Helms, were really instrumental in helping me at the beginning. But they really didn't want me to do anything. I really just got beat up a bunch. They didn't ever let me get involved. So the idea to come back and learn how to properly train and wrestle was really appealing to me.
Right, hey, David, this is Brian Knobs, Nasty Boy. That was done by Canyon, okay, and there's a couple other of the school of boys out there from WCW. Is that correct? But Chris Canyon was a real big help.
Yeah, Chris Kanyon was amazing.
And yeah, I miss him. I miss him to this day. Yeah, I was one cool dude, man. In the business, he was a real good guy. He's not here no more, and that sucks. But I knew he was training you, so I knew you were getting trained the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a big role on screen through a lot of people's childhoods, but also an even bigger presence backstage, and yeah, he is missed. Knobs, I did want to ask you a question, because this movie, from David's point of view, kind of starts at a low place, and without spoiling too much, I think goes in a positive direction. But on screen towards the beginning, you guys have a little bit of a dust up, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, I want to explain the whole story. All right, I came in and I told them, you're not going to shoot no film here. This is what the league I started is called Legends of Wrestling. It's for the boys to get back together, and like the old times where we don't have to worry about Vince McMahon barking down our throat that, oh, you did this at the bar, you did that at the bar. Get the guys that like each other and love each other the most and go out there and perform for the fans that have been backing us for 20, 30, 40 years, and put on a show for them and sign autographs for them, and then have guys that maybe can't wrestle come in and do different stuff. You know what I mean? So at the very last minute, David called me, and his wife got a hold of me, and very nice. It was very nice. I never really met David, even believe it or not. I was in the movie, and I took a spear from the King, at the time, and that never made it to damn, editing. But what happened was, when he gave me that spear, he jammed two of my ribs. And then that night on Nitro, and you can watch it, I had to wrestle Goldberg with damn Jimmy Hart. Oh my God, yeah. But Bill's a good guy, and he let me take advantage. And he's a tough son of a bitch too. So I didn't know David as good, but I was only in that one little part, and I never met David. So when he came there, and Eric was pushing it,
Eric
you got to have him on there. You got to have him do it. Eric Bischoff, excuse me. But, and me and Eric had our ups and downs in our career. So, it's well documented, let me tell you. The Nasty Boys are the Nasty Boys. But I started this league, and it did really good. We did Major League Baseball, NHL, NFL around here, and it got big that people wanted to see that group of guys from the 90s, 80s, 90s, that layer of hacksaws, Jake the Snake, of what I mean, Ultimate Warrior. He's not here anymore, but Ultimate Warrior, Ric Flair. I mean, how can you get any better? Bret Hart, Sting. You're talking about the top dogs at the time, all the GOATs, and plus all the other great wrestlers too, Rikishi, the Godfather. I mean, the list could just go down. If you want to go to, legendsofwrestling.com and check it out. So when they told me they were going to do this, I said I told David, and David could, either say I was telling the truth or not, but I said, man, this show we're doing is for the boys. It's us to have a good time and show the fans that we appreciate them. And thank you very much. And then afterwards, we go to the bar and get drunk, and it's closed off, and we're not going to get bothered, and we can, be our old selves again. So I talked to David. Everything was cool. And then afterwards, Eric's son, Garrett's birthday was, and I came in and I was doing something that, and believe it or not, that's another thing Eric always says. Brian Knobs was running shows. I can't believe it. And then he even, came up to me and shook my hand and said it was an awesome show. But I came in, there were cameras all over. And dude, you're talking about old timers now. You know what I mean? There's SAG there, and Ricky Steamboat brought us up. Ric Flair brought us up, and it's real fraternity brother stuff, bro. It's major. It's even more major than football and baseball. The guys have such a close relationship because we're on the road so much, and then all of a sudden, one of poor David's handlers that tried to sneak over and see what Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was saying, and then a big melee broke out, and I see David fighting and they had him by the hair and the neck, and I'm going, wait, well, calm the hell down. Thank God I wasn't drinking. That thing would already been screwed up. You know what I mean? But at that time I wasn't drinking, and I said, hold on, calm down. What the hell's going on? And Ricky Steamboat said, it's not what it's not everybody don't want to be filmed. It's he said something and gave David a really good, speech from his heart, because Ricky the Dragon is, he's the man, and he's a real honest, good guy. That he just said, kid, come here. He said, kid, come here. He said, you may be on TMZ every week. This is the way times have gone, but it's not times like this for us. And this is our time just to sit here and relax and joke and talk about all the old stories and all the old times. And then I saw, when I watched the movie, I saw David out there, and he was contemplating that, going well, maybe I don't fit in the gang. Maybe I don't fit in the, well, you know what, dude? I do this, 35 years, 300 days a year, busting my effing ass. Yeah. And we were on the road all the time. So it's almost like acting. You get, when you're an actor and you're a good actor, and you guys, David knows so many actors, it's unbelievable. He had to get in that group, okay? And so when I saw that guy I know if it was an accident or not, okay? But I said, no filming, this and that. That squashed out. The next day, everything was cool again. And then I got a call. You were filming this film, and we would like to have David there again. And actually, I reached out to David before he reached out to me, because I saw that guy kind of, the death match, and I don't know if it's an accident. Now, I'm not saying anything if it's an accident, if it's not an accident, but that should not happen. I'm one of the toughest son of a bitches you could beat my head in with a bat, but you should not come close to death in any match in your life. Wow. You're a professional and you're entertaining. So when they did that and I saw that, I felt sorry, and I reached out to him and I said, David, I'm sorry what happened. I'd like to have you on my next show if you'd like to be on. And I put him against Ken Anderson, who, him and Vince had a good feud. He was Mr. Kennedy up there and had the United States belt with the WWE. And I guess, things didn't go the way they did. And, this is wrestling. But, he don't want to be put down either. So, but what I did tell him, I says, hey, I want to put you against David Arquette. and he's training his ass off, and I want you to give him the match of his life. And I said, and I don't want you to, I want you to lay shit in and just fucking be you. You know what I mean? And
well, we saw that.
What he's talking about too, about the first time that we met in that big brawl, and then what he did was, I didn't know they were filming. Like I didn't know the wrestlers had come in behind me. They didn't ask to film. It was a whole thing. We were totally out of line, and I'm sorry for that. But what happened there was I got taken to something called Wrestler's Court, which is something like a mythological kind of like place to me as a fan. And RJ explained it to me. He said I got taken to Wrestling Court with Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, which is just for me. David, who better than Ricky the Dragon Steamboat? No. You're talking about a fucking goat right there.
He's like the Matlock of pro wrestling.
Yeah,
wrestling right the Matlock.
Dude, he's right up there with
Can we call a quick timeout for all the uninitiated and have RJ explain what Wrestler's Court is? RJ City?
It's perhaps a kangaroo court, if you will, a banana republic in a sense. If you have a grievance with another fellow wrestler, you go backstage and you get to present your case, and the boys and their appointed judge would act as the judge and jury, and they would pass sentence on the grievance and the resolution that should follow.
I will say, watching that fight.
But listen, let me tell you, buddy, I've been in this business, and I'll tell you something. All right, hey, and when I was in that movie, I never saw David at all. I did that little thing, but I know DDP, okay, and all the other guys said, don't touch David, don't put him, even in his training, don't go and fucking put him through hell. To let him glide by, get that. And then when Eric was smoking whatever he was smoking, I wish I was smoking that right now and gave him the belt. But anyway, you know, if there was a clue behind what he did, but David wasn't that invested at the time in pro wrestling, okay? And it took him 18 years to come back. And now I can tell everybody, my hat is off to you, brother. You are one of the boys.
What?
Nobody can tell you. I said, I saw your back all bloody. If my back or Stag's back would have been bloody like that, could you imagine what the person we were wrestling back would have looked like?
No.
You know what I mean?
No, I got to cut in. It would have. I mean, that what he went through in this movie is obviously amazing. I will say that little squabble you guys got to in the beginning, that's when I knew, David Arquette, that you had a real chance, because at the end of it, whatever happened, you were still on your feet and you were still pointing your finger. So I was half expecting you to be wrapped around somebody's ankle at that point, and that sort of, you weren't. You were still going, and hell, I mean, just that was impressive enough. You said, David Arquette, you say early on in the film that you don't quite know why you want to find out why fans love wrestling so much and why they get so mad at you. And your brother has a really great line in the movie too, where he says that you just want to be liked in everything you do, and it's weighed on you for the past 18 years that you're so disliked in the world of pro wrestling. Is that true? I mean, talk about what you knew about your own mindset going in. Did you know that mattered to you when you started?
Well, dude, it was always, we were with we were the nasty boys, dude. We got in trouble. We didn't rib fucking everybody. We just didn't, like, the older timers would just rib. And I meant Mr. Perfect, our mentor, I love you to death. But it would always be a lot of joking and ribbing, but it was always to the younger wrestlers. Well, when me and Sag got in and got taught when we were young, and the rib like that, well, when we got older in the business, we said, fuck it. We ribbed Macho. We flipped Taxaw out. We flipped fucking Hogan out. We flipped them all out because we fucking knew what we had when we went out there and did what we did. We knew they must have liked it, you know. And I love being a heel better than you know, a babyface. And I think David, and I'm just telling, if you ever get the second round, go heel, but you know, don't take as many bumps. But you proved yourself, man. I gotta admit, I told him this, and after I saw it, and I said, I'm really proud of you. I mean, you passed the test. And
Sure
I
did.
said, I don't know what the fuck you were thinking, because you're a fucking class A fucking Hollywood actor.
Yeah.
You know, the Arquettes are a big name in the fucking Hollywood business. And
Yeah. Knobs, let me jump in one more time. RJ, I want to go to you real quick
Are you
because
sure?
this is going to, well, I'm going to ruffle some feathers, but Brian Knobs takes us to a, you know, from a point in history that I think a lot of wrestling fans are aware of. But you come from you're of the more modern school, and there's a point in the movie where you just say straight up, you say it's like if you're playing a king in a play. They were talking about the importance of title belts, you know, and David obviously helped. And he said, it's like if you really get attached, you think you did a great job, and you start wearing the crown around outside of or off the stage. Do you think that there's any wrestlers that are going to take exception to the way that you put that?
I'm sure some would, but I hope they understand the way I meant it. I certainly have great reverence for Brian Knobs, him and Sags. I drove around many years ago on the East Coast in a van for 2 weeks, and it was a learning experience about how the business really works and how to work at a certain level that only very few guys can. But in the modern retelling and the cross-section of wrestling and show business, especially for David, I looked at both of them as the exact same thing. And I think it was an opening for him to be like, yeah, this is just a play, a very, very violent, unrehearsed play. And there's an element of you don't want to take it too seriously because you don't want to have an ego about it, because you want to tell the story that you want to tell. And for him, that was about gaining respect and getting the fans to like him and getting the boys to like him. And he had to show humility in his matches and in his general behavior.
I do want to say, before we go into the list of the viewer questions, that there are a lot of high points in this movie. There are a lot of there's you know, a lot, there's a climax. It's the narrative arc is great, but as a wrestling fan who gets into arguments and conversations about how much planning Macho Man and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat did before their match, and like some people call it on the fly, this is real wrestling nerd stuff. The segment of the film where you, RJ, and you, David Arquette, talk through your match before it happens, and this is for the directors too, is one of the most amazing wrestling sequences, and there's not even wrestling involved yet. It's really cool. So here's a question from this is from Bill Alexander for David and RJ. Was there anything that you didn't accomplish with your matches in your feud that you wanted to do, or that you planned to do and never came about? David, let's start with you.
Well, it's just a certain few little things in there that, you know, they use some of the good stuff, but there's a whole match of that online. There's a whole moment where we have like a Eddie Guerrero kind of thing with the chair. We pass it back and forth. It was really fun. Sort of me and RJ, when we wrestle, it's more like Laurel and Hardy or something. You know, we're just joking around and not joking around at all. We're very serious in what we do, but he's very mad at me. He's embarrassed by me. So it's just stuff like that. It's when we went out on the road is where we really sort of found our groove on how to tell a story. And when you then tell the same story with different tweaks throughout different cities, you can see that what works and what doesn't. It's a lot like a comedian in a way.
There was a lot of, you know, there was really little plan in terms of David's wrestling. He seemed content to really figure it out as he went and try as many things as possible. And especially when we started with the feud, there were companies that wanted to get involved. And then when we started teaming, there were a lot of different shows that we had booked or had to pull off on, and things get canceled and switched around, which is sad, but we're happy to, you know, take what we got. And what did we do? Maybe 15, 20 tag matches together in a bunch of different places. And it was nice to take him around. And what you can't see just in a movie is the day-to-day grind that he put himself through. He would show up at the airport and I'd be like, where's the camera people? He's like, oh no, I just want to wrestle. So he really, took all this on from the ground level.
That's fantastic. This is a question from Bill Alexander. This is for Price and David Darg. Sorry, this is from Charles Robinson. What was the hardest thing about making the documentary for you guys?
Legendary referee.
The Charles Robinson.
Yeah.
Probably Brian Knobs trying to kill us on the first day of shooting.
That was pretty much that bar fight. The SAGs came up to me initially because we were carrying on filming because we thought, well, something's going to happen here. But I'm 6'5", and I shat myself. Like Jerry stepped up. And I was like, oh, this is going to happen. And I was fucking trying to apologize within an inch of my life. And then me and Darg were like trying to sort of peacemake. And then it all escalated and it went crazy. But apart from that, the hardest part for me was probably being in the middle of the intersection in Tijuana with eight lanes of traffic and sort of fucking 50-ton trucks skimming me by. And I'm on a long lens, and Darg is wrapped on David, and we're trying to get the Tony Scott kind of epic sort of genre moment. And it's like, don't lose the shot because it's all we've got. And it's just me and Darg. There's no one else, no other crews. So, yeah, in the middle of traffic, and definitely Jerry threatening to snap my head off.
Yeah, in the bar fight, you're only seeing the end of the fight because Jerry actually grabbed my camera, looked me straight in the eye, and like spiked it on the floor and smash the lens off. So what you're seeing in the fight is me like 30 seconds later getting my cell phone out, creeping behind the bar like a coward, sort of like this, trying to capture as much as I could. But yeah, that was the first day of shooting, and it went all downhill after that.
That's fantastic. You just mentioned the Tijuana scene, and one of the viewers, Henry T. Casey, just wrote in for David Arquette. How much were you shocked or excited to see the wrestling in the streets of Tijuana? For those of you that haven't seen the film, David goes and trains with some luchadors in Mexico, but then sort of proves his mettle afterwards by doing this like street wrestling, which is a sort of combination of professional wrestling and street performance, where they do some moves and beat each other up and then go ask for change from the cars nearby. David Arquette, what had you seen that before? What was that experience like?
Oh, it was so scary. I had never seen it before. I was amazed at these guys and their talent. But we didn't plan it, so nothing was planned. They just put me out there, and I like tried to full Nelson the guy or something. It was just like, it wasn't planned at all. We didn't plan anything. I didn't know what to do. So we kind of figured something out quickly. I saw the ladder there, and I was like, I'm gonna go climb up there and jump on. I've always loved Jimmy's Superfly Snuka, so that's always something I wanted to do, was jump off the top rope. And that's sort of why I do it outside of the ring now. Yeah,
it was that leap off the ladder, the metal structure, whatever that was just one of the great high points of the movie. You said, did your dad? Is that right? Did the voice of Jimmy Superfly?
Yeah, he did
in the old cartoon.
Yeah, he was like one of my favorite wrestlers at the time. So I was like, it's obviously so culturally inappropriate now, but it still was great when I was a kid to know that and just.
I must cut in with Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling trivia. The voice of Hulk Hogan was Brad Garrett, and the voice of the Junkyard Dog was James Avery, who was Uncle Phil on The Fresh Prince. That, to me, is an all-star voice cast.
That's just a murderer's row. That's fantastic, and no pun intended there. So, David, you say you're talking about training in Mexico, you're wrestling in the street. There's a point where you say that people haven't seen what you can do in the ring, when you're sort of like at a lower point and you're just like, back 18 years ago, people never knew what I could do. Did you even know what you were going to be capable of? Did you know that you were going to be hitting Hurricane Ranas and jumping outside the ring? Did you know that was in your skill set?
No, I didn't know what I would be able to accomplish at that point. I had a high opinion of myself, I guess. you know, I've trained for different things and then had to get into shape for things and prepare different sort of skills in different films. So I knew what it was going to take, sort of. I knew some of it, but it's a lot. It's a full life commitment, and you have to really put everything aside. And there's a lot of stuff that comes with it that's really difficult to go through.
He's very athletic, I have to say. Despite his best efforts, he's very athletic. The Rana looks amazing. And every time we wrestled after our match, when we tagged, he always hit this beautiful dive to the outside. And he nailed it and committed every time. In the same way, I think you would have to commit intensely as an actor. That's the same way you have to commit to a dive. And unfortunately, it pains me, but he's somewhat of a natural at this.
I was going to ask this question to David Arquette, but actually I'm going to ask it to David Darg and Bryce James. What was the most painful thing? From your point of view, what do you think the most painful thing to watch David go through during the making of this movie was?
There was so many. The obvious one is the death match, where, I mean, it was literally so painful that when I got home that night, I was covered in his blood and I was picking glass out of my hair. I mean, it was a very scary thing to see a friend go through. Mm-hmm. But maybe not the most painful thing in the film. I think the harder things for me were the emotional downs, where, you know, after that, we really saw David take an emotional downturn. And that was just hard for us from a production standpoint, trying to, like, you know, get back into the swing of things and see if we didn't know if he was ever going to get back into the rhythm of the production even. But yeah, it was just tough. It took an emotional toll on him, and he's a sensitive guy, as you see in the film. And it's never a good moment to see a friend hitting rock bottom again.
Yeah, New York was pretty hard. We knew that David was going through some sort of obstacles internally, but we knew what had to be achieved in that sort of the end of the second act, beginning of that kind of like the third act rise. So we had to be with him and, you know, just objectively try and capture everything. But, you know, David sort of, his drinking came into play. You know, there's some of the stuff in New York is pretty difficult. And obviously the stuff, the sort of more intimate stuff captured before his sort of rise back into the match with Ken Anderson. That was particularly difficult to be part of. And just to stay quiet, but to show our support and make sure we had it all on camera, because, you know, we knew it had to be shown.
And seeing him get a back alley tattoo in Tijuana at 3 a.m. with like a rusty needle was pretty painful, I think. Wasn't it, Dave?
It wasn't a rusty needle. Okay, but the tattoo artist did give me the jar of rusty needles and he said, pick one. What? Then he unwrapped one. But yeah, for me, the pile driver from Jerry the King Lawler has stuck with me to this day. I took it wrong and just sort of spiked myself. So that's been an ongoing one. But no, the 3 fractured ribs and then having to take bumps and then go on the road and wrestle, that was really the most painful, because it never stopped. And it was like every moment just breathing and coughing and then taking those bumps on that. I'd gotten x-rays and they hadn't found it. And I thought there was like something severely wrong with me. But I just had to you just have to muscle through. I had this saying, don't worry if your neck hurts before your match, because your back's going to hurt so much worse after. You literally trade these injuries like down, they just keep moving to something else. And then your, fingers dislocated, the whole thing.
We got a question from one of the viewers. It's from Dustin Miles for David Arquette. As a parent, how proud were you that your daughter seemed to love watching you perform?
Yeah, that was really the highlight for me, that Coco didn't get embarrassed. I mean, anything for my 16-year-old daughter not to get embarrassed, especially with something that's so sort of revealing and out there. But in the world of wrestling in general, people are always giving a hard time. So I was really thrilled that she wasn't embarrassed and that she's like showing it to her friends and proud.
Yeah, it's great. Your whole family, I said it before, but I mean the backyard wrestling ring. I mean, there's a lot of surprising heartwarming elements to this, which is, was one of the real high points for me. We talked a little bit about the Nick Gage match. A lot of every wrestling fan probably knows about this. You went in, had a death match, ended up getting your neck really badly cut open. And then your kind of frame of mind seemed to really be the real, take the real hit from that. Can you talk about that a little bit and just what it took to sort of get past where that led you?
Yeah, it wasn't something that was planned. Darg just happened to be in town. I was supposed to wrestle Joey Janela the spring before or something, and it didn't work out at spring break, and it didn't work out. So then this one came out, and then someone had dropped out of wrestling Nick Gage, and I said, sure, I'll do it. I knew Jungle Boy was going to be on the thing, and I don't know. It was my mistake that I got stabbed in the neck. I pulled his legs when I wasn't supposed to. I was getting upset, and I learned a really good lesson to stick to the plan, even if something's going wrong. You always have to stick to the plan.
Yeah. And one guy for RJ, before we started recording, you're joking around about kayfabe. I'm sure if everybody listening knows what kayfabe is. What, as a professional wrestler, do you talk about kayfabe in a different way to someone like David Arquette or to the directors of this film than you talk to the other boys in the locker room? I mean, is it weird to talk to an actor about what the different kind of acting that you're doing?
Not for me, because I look at them as exactly the same thing. And if anything, I think the directors and David came in with their guards up about protecting kayfabe and respecting it. I'm like, guys, relax. I always say in 1925, the New York Times stopped covering wrestling because they knew it was fake. So since then, people knew. And I think it's time for, perhaps a new way of opening up wrestling and letting people in. And I'm happy that people could see how we put that match together. And we put it together that way for a reason. And you want to let people in and see the process behind it. And we got to live out, David's basically living out two movies. He did one of like his actual run. If you went to shows or you were online and you see him do that in real time, and now you get to basically go behind the scenes and see the director's cut of his wrestling run.
It's David, watching this film, I was worried for your safety a number of times. But then I was even more worried when I thought that you might start a tidal wave of 40 and 50-year-old wrestling fans that decided to jump into the ring for the first time because of how capable you were at this whole thing. I don't know if that's even a question, but you were an inspiration. I hope you're an inspiration in the right way. But there was a lot of, it took you a lot to get to where you were. I mean, to get to the headspace of being a pro wrestler. What was the hardest part of the transition for you? Was it just the mental? Was it the physical? What was it? The pile drivers? What was the hardest thing?
The physical is just incredibly painful. It's really hard, and it stays with you. So it's like the gift that keeps giving. So it's really painful. Anyone thinking about doing it, I would encourage them to get in shape and you can train and stuff. It's just, I don't know. It's such a painful sport. But and listen, wrestlers aren't supposed to say that. That's why I'm like, I probably shouldn't say it anymore. But that was some of the hardest stuff. I mean, it's hard in a lot of ways, just on relationships, on just schedule, on the pain element. But I did learn, one of the hardest things to learn as a wrestler is to, you have to really be in the moment. You have to be right where you are. You can't be thinking ahead, worried about the past. You have to be there. You have to slow time down. You have to take your time. You have to be deliberate. You have to have a clear head just to really get it good. I mean, wrestle good. I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, for Price and David, Darg, what did you learn about pro wrestling? You're both obviously wearing masks and sitting in wrestling rings right now, so you're fully ensconced in the world. But you had to be shocked at many parts of this journey, kind of getting behind the curtain.
I guess for us, seeing the grassroots indie wrestling for us was for the most sort of like eye-opening, really. The kind of like the passion of those kids who come out sort of week in, week out, just basically wrestling in front of like 6 friends and just kind of doing it for the love. You know, there's no sort of shortcut to the sort of big show. And I think you kind of get that throughout the film. We try to sort of pay homage to every sort of aspect of Americana and as wrestling through America, you know, the backyard, the indie circuit, going to Mexico. And I guess us seeing that full spectrum is something we wanted a viewer who'd never seen wrestling before to like fall in love with wrestling as we have again. So, you know, you kind of distance from wrestling when you become a teenager maybe. And I guess during filming, we've all fallen back in love with it. Hence the get up. I'm sitting here with my hairy back out. And just because like, I love it. It's like, you know, the indie scene in LA, the bar wrestling, and Darg's in Virginia, and his scene is great. And I think that's what we want the viewer to, you know, we want the viewer to fall in love. And this is a love letter to wrestling.
Yeah, I think the tribes, it was so fascinating to see the different wrestling tribes, like the metal kids that go to the death matches, and also the diversity, like people from different walks of life that come together over this common love for wrestling that ordinarily you wouldn't expect to hang out anywhere else. So it's just like a very diverse, inclusive crowd, just full of passion. And yeah, like Price said, the breadth of it, that it's happening like every weekend all across America in little halls and like just small venues is incredible to me. I didn't know that it was that prolific. And so that was an amazing thing to discover. And now, yeah, I'm going to like my local matches as often as I can because I'm falling back in love with it full on.
Oh, can we just do a shout out to Jerry Kubik, David's best friend in the film? He's online and he's saying, "Hey, you know, fucking give me a call out over here." So, hey, Jerry.
Jerry, we love you.
You're awesome in the film.
He's a legend.
Oh my gosh!
Very so happy we didn't put in certain incriminating scenes. I think.
You'll know what that means.
My favorite thing about Jerry is I was talking to Jerry. He's like, people have to jump into my back seat to get arrested. He's like the best cop you'd ever want to run into.
He's the nicest cop in the world.
Oh my gosh, guys, you can watch the movie just for Jerry alone. We've got, you know, David Arquette. We got one more question from a viewer for you. This is Nails and New York. I'm not exactly sure. Nails and NY, I guess. I hope it's not I don't think it's the wrestler Nails. It's spelled differently. But he says, after the positive feedback, do you feel accepted into the wrestling family now?
I do, and a lot of that came with Brian Knobbs calling me up after the death match and inviting me to Legends of Wrestling. It really was a sweet gesture, and you know, when you do pay your dues and put in the time, you can get the respect, you know, from the guys, but no one's gonna give it to you. I learned a lot. You know, I would do it again. The championship run. I don't know though, because I wouldn't have been able to tour with all those guys and be part of something I love. So I'm just glad that I can be part of something I love and a business I love, and, you know these guys and sort of know behind the things. But I also love just being a fan. It's so much fun to sit down and just watch matches and not have to take the crazy bumps.
Yeah, I mean, the life is a lot. And I think that one of the coolest parts of the movie was the sort of montage of all of your indie dates, because that's in a lot of ways, like, that was the triumph, right? This wasn't just a one-off. It was like the body of work. It was that you went out there and you did it. You know, you were on the road, like RJ was talking about. You walked the walk. And that, I thought that part was, you know, really impressive. I think we have Brian Knobbs back on the line, and I wanted to bounce that same question to him. If you're there, Knobbs, we're talking about David asking if he felt like he was part of the wrestling family now that he's been on one of your cards. You've seen everything that he's gone through. Do you feel like, do you consider him a brother in the ring and kayfabe and everything else? Oh, he's not on. All right.
Aw.
Well,
That's
isn't
too
that
bad.
always the way?
Well, listen. I mean, there were David. The response that you got was incredible. I mean, as you were going back out there, do you feel like you earned your stripes more? I mean, do you feel like that was a big part of it, putting in the time, putting in the energy, or do you feel like there? I got a sneaking feeling watching this whole thing that part of it was just that you were ahead of your time, and I don't want. Maybe RJ can speak to this too. No one was going to be okay with an actor 18 years ago, right? But there seemed like, but the level of passion you had for it, I think, overcame everything else, and we can see that now. I mean, do you think that? Go, RJ.
He was in a really unfortunate situation. It was a collectively bad decision, and he just happened to be the face of it, and he took responsibility for it and made amends. And David is now out of the category of like one-time wrestler. He's more into the category of an Andy Kaufman, who, you know, really dedicated their lives and respected the art. And also, I think ultimately this movie did a lot of good for the mainstream perception of pro wrestling, because I think a lot of non-wrestling people can watch this and understand and respect a lot better what all the wrestlers have to go through.
It was really well done. I mean, I've seen more wrestling documentaries than I could even count, and this was for a very unique one. I mean, it was really, really well put together. David and Price, there's a question from Mary Lublin. Are there any scenes that you shot that you didn't have time to put in the movie that you wanted to?
Dude, there was 240 hours cut down to 90 minutes. So, I mean,
so what's your favorite scene that didn't make the movie? How about that?
There's some amazing DVD extras, which we want to, you know, shout out. There's a luchador museum, which I broke my heart to lose, but we just 4 minutes over time that David is sort of taken around a museum, lucha museum in Tijuana. And that's like, it's cut to the museum music from Ferris Bueller, and it's beautiful. And it's a really touching scene. That especially, there's the great DDP walk down memory lane as well, which we lost for time.
Anything else?
Darg, your faves?
Oh man, it breaks your heart how much didn't make it in the film, but David's already agreed to make a second one, so we're going to start production soon, and we'll look forward to that.
Explore the Japanese world of death matches.
Oh my God!
You know how it has to end, David.
No.
You can kill David Arquette.
Full committal.
Actually, you can kill David Arquette. Final. I know all of this stuff going on in the world. I'm like, oh God, unfortunate title for this period in time.
Oh man. Well, David, at one point in the movie, you say that it's realer than you ever knew. I mean, you could take that in a million different directions. But I guess you really can kill David Arquette would really be pushing it. Is there I think we got to wrap up pretty soon. David, do you have any closing thoughts? I mean, there's so much in this movie is about you human being, but it's also about this bigger pro wrestling world. What do you, I feel like it keeps coming back to your journey. I mean, what would be your advice to anybody that wanted to follow in your footsteps, or what would you say to what would you say to David Arquette 18 years ago? Well, if you could go back in time and talk to yourself, besides don't say yes, what would you say?
I would just have to train more. I would have got more training on my own, on my private time, and showed up knowing what I was doing. That's like even all the indie stuff we did. That none of that was pre-planned, or it's stuff I put together. RJ put together. We sort of went out and did it on our own. But I don't know. It's really all about the fans, honestly. We wanted to make a film to entertain the people, and I thank David Darg and Price James so much for creating such an incredible movie, and Christina Arquette for producing the heck out of it, and XTR and Bryn Mooser and Neon Super LTD. But all of you, and RJ City, of course.
Don't thank me. This has been the bane of my existence. Please stop associating me with this film. Thank Brian. Is he back?
David Shoemaker. Thank you guys for all being here. And just thanks to the fans. It's really about the fans. And I hope you enjoy it.
Wait, is that Brian Knobs here?
Yeah, man. I got cut off these phones. I'm old school, man. I'm not too good at all this stuff. So I was trying to chime in. Are you there?
Yeah, we're here. We got about 1 more minute. Do you want to take us out?
All right. Well, all I'm going to tell you is, you know, I wish you would have took a little on the road when you were with RJ, because that's what it's all about. And I know it's kayfabe and all that, but to show a little bit of that, because that is the fraternity of brothers you get when you're driving every day, 300 days a year, 320 days a year without a day off. And all you're worried about is after you get out of that match, you start drinking beers, driving to the next, road 250 miles away, 300 miles away. And you're talking about your match and how you can make it better and how you can make do this and put this in there. And I just want to take my hats off. And next time I see David, I'm going to give him a big wet kiss on his lips. He may not want that too much, but he did a great job, man. He's definitely part of the boys. That's it. Oh, you don't want that. Jesus Christmas.
Well,
my breath smells better than my armpits, I'll tell you that.
All right.
we got to get out of here, guys. Listen, one thing I was going to say to David was that he probably wishes he had $1 for every time someone in the wrestling world said to him, "This ain't the movies." But pardon the bad segue, guys. This is the movies. This is a documentary. It's out right now. You can go watch it right now at drive-in movie theaters. You can watch it online. You can do lots of stuff. It's called "You Cannot Kill David Arquette." The title is true. The movie is fantastic. Thank you all for paying attention to this. And thank you all in the panel for being a part of it. David Arquette, you in particular, you are a legend and an inspiration to all of us. So thank you all, and everyone have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, guys. Thank